Welcome, guys. As many of you know, I am a trauma, nervous system, and psychedelic integration coach and a CPTSD survivor, and I am trying to raise awareness of trauma and its effect on our lives, but also normalize psychedelic healing and its benefits. And today I will talk a little bit about my experience with psilocybin. So I've done over 20 sessions of psychedelics for the purpose of healing. Those range from psilocybin, MDMA, ketamine, and Iboga, Kambo. And today I will focus on my early experiences with psilocybin and what I experienced and how I felt like. So I started psilocybin. I was always afraid of doing psychedelics. I always said I'm afraid of what I might find out and that I can't handle it. I think that's such an intelligence that I had within my intuition from an early age on. And I only started doing it when I was ready. And I do feel there's this readiness and there's this shift within our intuition and our inner knowing when it's time. And psychedelics found its way into my life with one of my ex-relationships. We had a session that was guided by a very kind woman, and during that first experience with psychedelics, I turned towards my partner at that time and I said for 6 hours straight, I'm so exhausted from a lifetime of trauma. I'm so exhausted from a lifetime of trauma. And I just kept on repeating that sentence. And that was the first experience of me meeting myself. I met myself. I thought I was going to meet a higher power. I was going to meet God. And I just met myself. And I actually didn't recognize myself at first. And from there, I've done quite a few psilocybin journeys before other psychedelics found its way into my life. I look at it as it is what it is. What happened, and that's okay. I do, in retrospect, as someone who had quite a severe trauma and quite a dysregulated nervous system, I'm not sure if that was the best entry for me. So the problem was that psilocybin was quite a slap in the face. It was quite a punch in the face. And maybe I needed that, maybe not. I do, however, look back and I think, wow, it woke me up, but I was really not ready to wake up. So I was very, very stubborn as well. And I didn't do integration work. I didn't know anything about integration work. I didn't know the necessity of how important it is to integrate and also integrate with someone who really understands it. And I think, especially with psychedelics, it's people who have used the medicine themselves as well. I think that's so important because embodiment and lived experience is so essential in understanding altered state of consciousness. I personally don't believe that anyone can really guide someone through this without having experienced their own journeys to some extent in their own healing journey. And so what happened is that as much as it woke me up and it helped me to connect with myself and discover my true self, and that was the beginning, oh my gosh, and I thought I was like, I just started thawing a little bit, and a little bit with like a little scoop, and it was a huge, huge, huge mountain that I had to overcome over the years. But what also happened during psilocybin is that it really dysregulated my nervous system, especially the last one, the massive dose that I took, not massive dose, but the ceremony that I did was very, very intense. I was very, very confrontational, and I didn't have the internal safety to hold all of that. And so my nervous system was in overdrive for months until eventually I started doing MDMA therapy and so forth. And so anyway, in retrospect, it's very easy to say, I should have maybe done, should have, would have, could have. The knowledge at that time was not as available as it is now. And I think it's still quite limited. And to also find people to talk to about this in a healthy and trauma-informed and safe container is not easy. And I was missing people I could talk to, and I would also open up to the wrong people afterwards, and I would tell them about my experiences, and they would belittle it or they would laugh about it. And that made it they really invalidated, and maybe not consciously, but they really invalidated my experience. It was very painful for me. I felt silly and stupid, and I felt like I was like some weirdo doing things that are not healthy, but I was really just a person in pain trying to help themselves. So I did 4 psilocybin journeys over the years, and I did 2 microdosing sessions. And it's very easy to go like, in retrospect, I should have, would have, could have. But I do think that with trauma survivors, it can be difficult. And another thing that I learned is set and setting are so important. The intentions I go into these sessions with, and although I didn't have anyone to guide me through intention setting, I didn't know how to set an intention. It was often driven by ego parts, and then integration is so important. You know, what I do a lot with my clients is like I look at mind, body, community, spirit. You know, those are the areas that you have to look at, and afterwards, where do I need the most support? Where does this person need integration support, and to make sense of what came up? And otherwise, we can also lose touch with what we learned. And I often slid back into my old life. And then, of course, I think also in media, there's not enough information out there. And a lot of times, I think for the sake of making it easier, a lot of documentaries are kind of like, you know, making it look like, yeah, psychedelics can heal you. Boom, this person had like PTSD, and they did psilocybin, and now their PTSD is gone. And to be honest, it really misled me as well, and it made me feel broken sometimes, because I wouldn't come out of these sessions and feel better. I would often feel worse, first of all, because they are not healing in and on its own. They're just opening the pathways. They're shining the light. They're helping us see. They're illuminating what we need to see. But we still need to do the work and real life and embody it and practice it. And also, I said this many times in other formats as well, there's this real danger of doing psychedelics and thinking, oh, I've earned, you know, I'm a wise Buddha now. And we're really not, you know. Wisdom comes with time and with practice and with integration. And when we acquire a lot of knowledge in a session, there's also really big danger of the spiritual bypass coming out of the session being like, oh, I'm so wise now. And that's actually another way of avoiding pain. Because yes, we do get incredible insights and incredible knowledge about our lives and about, you know, our interconnectedness as human beings, but it takes practice to put that into wisdom. Like Carl Jung said very often, the dangers of unearned wisdom. And and set and setting can be so important. And I worked with quite a few people that were arguably very unsafe, and they made the session, they created a very unsafe environment, which, you know, for trauma survivors, we already feel quite unsafe in the world. Made it quite hard for me to integrate, and I turned to the wrong people, and they haven't done the inner work either. They haven't walked the walk fully either. They've maybe done a couple of sessions, and now they start facilitating journeys for other people. And it's often sold to people as like, yeah, go in and out this weekend, you know, heal your trauma, and that's misleading, you know. And I don't think that's compassionate and the right approach. Yes, open yourself up, work on your trauma, but don't promise healing. And I think for the sake of, you know, making documentaries easier, yes, a lot of documentaries say like, yeah, you took these mushrooms and now everything is gone, but it's really, really hard to do the integration. For me, at least, integration work has been incredibly hard. And to be honest, while I was doing psilocybin, up until MDMA therapy entered my life, I didn't even do any integration work. I just, you know, one day I remember I did a psilocybin journey. The next morning, I was on a market with friends, on a flea market, completely dysregulated. And I was honestly also quite overwhelmed with what came up. Because trauma survivors spend the majority of their life suppressing what is coming up. So working with what is coming up is pretty difficult and can be quite overwhelming. And so, yeah, I would love to leave this with you today. This is my experience with psilocybin. I think it maybe I needed those punches in the face. I don't know. I honestly think like my CPTSD gave me a lot of punches in my face to begin with. Maybe I don't think I needed that. I think I would have done much better with softness, but I do hold a lot of gratitude for psilocybin, and I am open to doing it again one day. And I think it's going to be a very different experience for where I am now, 20 sessions later, and a lot more humble than I used to be. And yeah, so that's a little bit about my journey. My next video will be about MDMA therapy, which came afterwards. So please like and subscribe. I would love to see you here of honest, nuanced, trauma-informed conversations on psychedelics, trauma, and healing. Okay, thank you guys.